Thank you, Prime Minister and Fran, for those insights into our relationship with China and setting the scene for the rest of today, and safe travels to Samoa. To continue this conversation and to introduce the next session, I'd like to invite Michael Barnett to the stage. Michael is, of course, co-chair of today's summit. Thanks, Michael.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's my pleasure to welcome the Minister of Trade and Export, Damien O'Connor, as our next speaker. Damien entered Parliament in 1993. He did so on a background of farming and adventure tourism. Today he's Minister of Trade, Export, Growth and Associated Responsibilities in Agriculture and Biosecurity. Minister's had a busy year with the EU-NZ Free Trade Agreement settlement, along with the UK-New Zealand FTA. He's also a part of a coalition of trade ministers working on climate change. Minister, great to have you here this morning. Welcome you to address this audience. Ladies and gentlemen, Damien O'Connor.
Kia ora tātou, Daijau hao. It's great to be back once again. I'd like to acknowledge a few people. The Prime Minister, she goes to Samoa, I go to Wellington. I suppose that's fair. Bruce Cameron asked if she could fill the back of the plane with RSC workers when she comes back. But, good idea, Bruce. Can I acknowledge former Prime Minister Helen Clark, Chinese Ambassador, Wang Ji Aolong. Welcome. Can I also acknowledge Winston Peters, the Right Honourable Winston Peters, the Honourable Jerry Brownlee and the Honourable Shane Jones. They are all members of a famous sports team, the Parliamentary Rugby team. Nice to have you here. I can't see where you are. But also I would like to acknowledge Fran O'Sullivan and Michael Barnett, of course, and the Auckland Business Chamber and all the work that you've done to set this up. This year marks 10 years since the first of these important summits were held, as the Prime Minister said, and I congratulate you all on the perennial success and relevance that the China Business Summit enjoys. Of course, 2022, as the Prime Minister also said, and I get a few lines of copy and the same of her speech as well, it's the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relationships between Aotearoa, New Zealand, and China. And our relationship with China, and indeed our trade and economic ties, of course, date way back further than that. This year sees us navigating challenges, including the ongoing effects of the pandemic. But we're also seeing the possibility to reconnect, to reopen, and to look forward to new opportunities that this brings. In this context, the government's trade recovery strategy, launched in 2020, has been updated in 2022 to best support businesses as they reconnect with partners, customers, and markets overseas. This has been a key driver of the trade delegations that the Prime Minister has led to Singapore, Japan, United States, and Australia so far this year, as well, of course, her recent travel to the EU and to the United Kingdom. The strategy has a number of aims. It supports a recovery that promotes sustainable and inclusive trade and lifts exporters' capability and performance in markets. It aims to strengthen international and regional trade architecture, and we want to build resilience against future shocks. The trade recovery strategy builds on our Trade for All policy, which we continue to implement despite the challenges that have been posed in recent years. We have supported NZTE through a funding boost from the COVID Recovery and Relief Fund. The boost has seen them expand from 700 to 1,400 focused companies and roll out digital resources and other services to companies of all sizes. We continue to open new opportunities for our exporters Over the last 12 months, of course, we've concluded the FTAs with both the United Kingdom and the European Union. We've also seen entry into force of our free trade agreement upgrade with China, along with the CPTPP and RCEP agreements, which we concluded earlier under this government. These measures have all contributed to continued year-on-year growth in our goods exports since 2017, despite the ongoing global challenging environment. In my role, I see firsthand the vibrant and long-standing trade and economic links between New Zealand and China. These are, in large part, a testament to the success and the expertise of many of you gathered in this room today. And I'm not sure whether Phil Goff's here, but I always like to acknowledge his work in negotiating the first free trade agreement with China. In recent years, we've seen a remarkable level of innovation and resilience in our businesses. Though much of this has been born out of necessity, the ability to adapt and evolve is a hallmark of good business. And it has been another busy year for the relationship, of course, COVID limitations notwithstanding. I've been pleased to connect regularly with my Chinese counterpart, Minister Wang Wentao, including our first in-person meeting in June in the sidelines of the WTO's 12th Ministerial Conference. After many virtual meetings, it was really nice to, wasn't shake hands, it was just click elbows with him in Geneva. In April, I was also pleased to announce the entry into force of the upgrade of the New Zealand-China Free Trade Agreement. The upgrade will modernise our existing 2008 agreement, ensuring that it is fit for purpose for today's trading environment. Among other things, the upgrade saw tariff elimination on 12 wood and paper products, improved customs procedures, and new commitments for trade and services. Reflecting our ever-changing global trade environment and determination to promote sustainable and inclusive trade, we also introduced new chapters to the FTA. One is the Trade and Environment chapter, which demonstrates our commitment to cooperate on sustainable development. Another is the chapter on e-commerce, a platform which has only continued to grow in relevance in the years since 2008, when the FTA was signed. There have been plenty of other shared successes over the past year, and I'd just like to briefly highlight some of the examples. The first is our agricultural cooperation with China, which is long-standing and now spans a number of our major primary sectors. Our dairy dialogue with China, for example, brings together government and industry representatives every 2 years to discuss opportunities and challenges for both countries' dairy products and sectors. It continues to be an important forum in which to exchange views and stay connected, including during the pandemic. Along with agriculture, we've also regular dialogues with China on fisheries and forestry-related issues. These primary sector dialogues are important strands in our relationship and cover significant portions of our trade with China. These discussions also provide us with the opportunity to discuss shared challenges for our primary sectors and explore ways that we can work together using our respective expertise to solve them. Some recent examples including improving each country's understanding of changing regulatory environments, knowledge sharing to progress our respective climate change obligations, as well as discussing ways to improve biosecurity management practices. We've also developed exchanges at the technical level. For example, for many years, New Zealand has been involved in an experts working group with China focused on milk quality and safety issues. This year, we've also established a similar experts group for the red meat sector. The sectors covered in these sorts of exchanges are wide-ranging, including, for example, equine health. These kinds of programs are hugely important for ensuring that New Zealand's systems and standards are recognised and understood by one of our key partners. I'd like to thank all the industry groups and companies who continue to support our agricultural relationship with China. We look forward to expanding our cooperation, which underpins and supports our trading relationship. On the business and tech front, we've continued to see success as well. For example, Weta Workshop has continued its growth in the China market, and last year set up a wholly foreign-owned enterprise in China in response to Chinese demand for Weta products. Another company, Draw More Circles, based in Auckland, has increased its presence in China with its high-performance online golfing solution. Working with the China Golf Association and the China Ladies Professional Golf Association Tour, Draw More Circles has expanded its reach over the past year, launching new products for the Chinese market. And finally, a standout agri-tech sector company, of course, Waikato Milking Systems, that is providing platforms in multiple provinces for milking equipment across China. In a wider sense, we've continued to work together on regional and international fronts. China and New Zealand are both parties to the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, which entered into force on the 1st of January this year. This mega regional trade agreement deepens our trade and economic connections in the Indo-Pacific region. RCEP forms an important part of our trade recovery strategy's efforts to contribute to building and strengthening regional trade architecture. And of course, we worked together during Aotearoa New Zealand's APEC host year in 2021. It was the first ever fully virtual hosting of APEC and delivered the Aotearoa Plan of Action, which provides APEC's work plan for the next 2 decades. This includes a range of issues important to New Zealand, including economic and trade cooperation, climate change, and COVID response and recovery. We appreciated China's constructive engagement on these valuable outcomes that position APEC well for the period ahead. I'd also like to recognise the importance of the China International Import Expo. This is now in its 5th year, and New Zealand businesses, supported by the New Zealand government, have been at every expo from when it first started in 2018. The CIAE has been a key platform for showcasing the broad range of New Zealand offerings into the China market. So I'm pleased that a number of New Zealand companies, including some of you here today, I believe, will be participating at this year's expo. Beyond China, we have also been busy working to take forward a wide range of priorities to advance Aotearoa New Zealand's broader trade recovery strategy, concluding, of course, free trade agreements with both the UK and the EU. These agreements together cover markets that pre-COVID were worth $23.5 billion in annual trade and will bring real benefits to businesses operating in or looking to expand into these markets once they enter into force. And when these 2 FTAs are in place, nearly 3/4 of New Zealand's exports will be to economies covered by legally enforceable trade agreements. Only 5 years ago, the portion was around half. Recently, we've also welcomed the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework as an opportunity to strengthen economic cooperation and partnerships across our wider home region, including with the United States. New Zealand also continues to pursue a policy of open plurilateral trade agreements, high-quality agreements that other countries can join in areas of shared interest. This includes the Agreement on Climate Change, Trade and Sustainability, which is still under negotiation between New Zealand, Costa Rica, Fiji, Iceland, Norway and Switzerland. It also includes the Digital Economic Partnership Agreement, DEPA, between New Zealand, Singapore and Chile that helps exporters take advantage of the opportunities available through digital trade. This approach also encompasses the work we do with Canada, Chile, Mexico through the Indigenous Trade Action Group and the various initiatives that we have there. New Zealand has all along supported the expansion of our network of plurilateral trade agreements to any economy that can meet their high standards. We've been pleased to see more trade partners expressing interest in joining these initiatives. China has requested accession to both DEPA as well as to the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, and we welcome China's interest. CPTPP is a quality agreement that sets high standards for its 11 members, who account for 13.3% of global GDP. We welcome interest from economies that are willing and able to meet the high standards that CPTPP sets. China's accession requests for DEPA and CPTPP are now with the respective members to work through collectively. In Geneva, we continue to be active at the World Trade Organization. At the 12th Ministerial Conference in June, we were pleased to achieve a meaningful outcome on pandemic response, and I was honoured to be the Director General's facilitator for the closing phase of the negotiation for the WTO Fish Subsidies Agreement, something New Zealand has been advocating for reform for over 20 years. These outcomes underscore the continued importance of the multilateral approach and the value of working together on pressing global issues. We will need to continue this spirit of cooperation in order to address other long-standing issues like agriculture and the role of environmentally harmful subsidies. Whether representing New Zealand's interests at the WTO or negotiating, or upgrading and implementing our free trade agreements around the world, our job is to create opportunities for you as New Zealand exporters. Ultimately, our goal is to give you strong, transparent trade rules and as many options as possible when it comes to export markets to support your commercial decision-making. We're focused on resilience, and diversification is one way to build up the resilience of individual companies and of the New Zealand economy as a whole, to withstand future economic shocks and to mitigate risks. As a government, we are focused on reconnecting New Zealand to the world, including to China. Yesterday, the border reopened to remaining visa categories, marking the final step in our reconnecting with the post-COVID world. This is a significant step for restoring our links, and I'm confident that visitors to New Zealand will receive a very warm welcome back. For our services sector, including international education and tourism, which have felt the heavy impacts of COVID-19 over the past 2 years, we're conscious this is a particularly important milestone. As our borders have reopened, New Zealand's air connectivity is improving with the resumption of flights that existed pre-COVID and even the launch of a new flight routes, of course, to a number of global destinations. Of course, we're still facing some headwinds. The government's very conscious of the impacts on global supply chains as a result of COVID-19 disruptions and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We're monitoring these impacts, supporting businesses in navigating these and working to build longer-term resilience. In fact, work across government agencies and with international partners such as Australia and Singapore to better understand and strengthen our international supply chains is a key part of building resilience under the trade recovery strategy. Those of you who do business in China will be well aware of the challenging balancing of a dynamic zero approach to COVID and stable economic growth. We know from our own experience the challenges that managing COVID-19 can bring for productivity and for supply chains. When disruption is experienced in major manufacturing and logistics hubs, including China, the impacts are felt around the globe. We expect China's border measures and quarantine requirements will continue for some time, though it has been encouraging to see a reduction in quarantine period time in recent times. We look forward to a greater movement of people as both countries' borders settings continue to ease. This will provide an important boost for our services sector, in particular when it comes. 3 airlines are currently operating direct flights between New Zealand and China with strong demand for cargo flights. We look forward to furthering our recovery once passenger travel is able to resume with appropriate COVID-19 safety measures. Conclusion, I'm sure you're glad that I'm getting close to this. I would like to conclude by recognising China's importance as a partner for New Zealand over the past 50 years. I do not doubt that it will be an important partner for the next 50 years as well. You know as well as I do the challenges businesses face in the current environment. Our government is committed to supporting businesses through these turbulent times, and we will continue to invest in our trade and economic relationship with China. in the hope and the expectation that it is one which continues to bring benefit to the people of both countries for a long time to come. Xi xi. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. I think you may have used the word, certainly the Prime Minister did, around diversification and the need for diversification. If I have a look at the title associated with this summit, the expression a balancing act is used. Is it a balancing act, or are we seeing issues that aren't really there?
I think everything's a balancing act. As a business trying to work out where you should focus your marketing efforts, where you should send your products. We have to be reminded, and I did this on a regular basis in the EU, we can only feed about 40 million people with all our product. And so please don't fear us. The Europeans have a slightly different approach. Look, it is a balancing act. Capital, people, and markets. And I guess we're in a world full of disruption. And I say literally, personally, every single plan I make now usually is disrupted in some way, major or minor. Flights are cancelled, programs change, people get COVID. That applies across the globe. So I guess for everyone in business, they're going to have to work out, how you try and mitigate those risks and balance, the resources that you have as a business, as a nation.
Minister, I'm going to go to some of the questions that are coming through. One here from Ethan Jones, and it says, China is now a powerhouse of innovation. How is New Zealand government looking to develop technology and innovation relationships with China?
I mentioned 3 companies there that are working actively in the China market. There are many more, and I'd have to say through the efforts of NZTE, they have really got out to promote new and emerging technologies. Gaming was something that, we played on the rugby field. And now it's a whole new industry. AI, all of these terms that really have come upon us in the last 10 to 15 years. And China is at the forefront of the development of many of those. We have to reach out and build partnerships and relationships. And we're doing that. It'll be good to be able to travel directly and continue to build those connections.
I can imagine you playing rugby. I can't imagine you being a gamer.
No, I'm not a gamer, no. Certainly not. But the reality is, and I speak for a nephew who probably 15 years ago at age 13, 14, just constantly gamed. And I thought he'd turn out to be a nerd and kind of useless. He's an amazing... he's not a gamer, but he's an amazingly balanced person. So I think that the world's changing. What our kids... have opportunities too and have to endure is different, and we just have to roll with the evolution.
He's probably nearer to automation and robotics today than you and I are.
Absolutely.
I have a question here from Alex Fing. As MPI and live exporters work together under a practice called Gold Standard, is there any chance for livestock export to continue after April 2022?
I could answer no, but then I also use never say never. But the point is that we will pass the legislation that ceases that. And the point is that actually there's more focus on animal welfare from consumers right across the globe. And it's a long period of transportation. It goes from a temperate climate through the tropics back into temperate climate where we don't know. So some of the issues around animal welfare for those animals while in voyage, regardless of where they go, but usually into the northern hemisphere, meant that our reputation is always under scrutiny, and so we needed to ensure that, and we saw some situations in Sri Lanka that reflected back on us. We don't want that tarnishing the reputation that people have built up over generations, and that some of our exporters now, particularly in food and fibre, depend upon.
A question here from Anonymous. Various NZ infant formula exporters are waiting audits to enable re-registration for continued China market access. Is government and MPI prioritising this?
Yes, and we have been, and it's a challenging area of technical discussion. We have to respect the right for China and for their authorities, to ensure their standards are met. We have to make sure that we can show that. And of course, it's been difficult. We haven't been able to have personal audits, so those have gone to video audits of many of our food producing plants. From a shaky start, I think that is that we weren't quite sure how it would work. It seems to have met the needs of both China and New Zealand to ensure that actually we're still delivering quality products into a market that can trust the systems. So we will work on that. I have to say there's been an issue, of course, with US and infant formula. They really want it, but then they don't want it. FDA has not been as cooperative perhaps as they should. We would like to offer more product, but if I come back to the point, we have a great market in China, and people have worked really hard to develop that. And I think one of the issues is as market opportunities open up, be it the US or elsewhere, we have to ensure that we are reliable and trusted, and we can continue to supply the product, to early partners.
In your speech, you referred to global supply chains and disruption. If I have a look at some of the issues that are confronting our exporters, and it is about supply chain, it is about some of the prices of a container from here to China. If I look 2 or 3 years ago, $2,000, today $10,000, and the disruption that's occurring in the supply chain at the moment. Do you have a regular contact with your Chinese counterparts to try and address these issues to help New Zealand exporters?
Not directly, but I've had meetings with Wang Wentao on broader issues, I guess, at a slightly higher level. I get weekly reports on supply chain issues. I think as a government, all agencies are working together, indicating where the blockages are, and thankfully the waiting times at some of the key ports around the globe have been coming down, as have some of the container rates, still really, really high. And I guess it's another reason for us to keep pushing the value of our exports up and up, so that we can better absorb what is the existing interruption and maybe into the future. Clearly we have to compete with other exporting nations to make sure that we have ships, and some of the big players can do that, and they're working with some of the smaller exporters, and I want to acknowledge the cooperation that has taken place. In spite of all that disruption, we've had growing export returns for oil and goods, and that's an amazing achievement in what has been really troubling and challenging times.
But given the enormity of the trade and the importance of it, do you think that this is going to prioritise, say, your presence in China now that the borders are open?
Look, we will get up there as quickly as we can, and I think both the Foreign Minister and myself, are ready to go, but there are still some huge logistical challenges in terms of some of the quarantine and where we might go. So we will be there as quickly as we can.
A question here from Lisa Lee. It says, our China Chamber of Commerce has just done a roadshow promoting CIIE. Will you be considering to lead a trade delegation to Shanghai to attend this in November? I don't know what CIIE is. I hope you do.
I do. And look, it would be great to time the visit with that, but I think, again, at the moment, there are still some logistical challenges around, as I say, quarantine periods that might be a little harder, having done 3 lots of MIQ, and I'm sure there are a lot in the room who have as well. I'm not kind of enthusiastic about another anywhere in the world, but I'm sure we will assist through NZTE, MFAT, to get as many people up there and to, ensure our presence is there. If I can get there, I will.
Sure. From Susan Zhu, what are the strategies for New Zealand to attract international students in China back to New Zealand as one of the best international education destinations?
Well, I agree, and I think, again, we'll get in market as quickly as we can, and I think the Prime Minister's indicated that, she will get up, and the reality is that, when she gets up there, then no one cares if I'm there or not. The fact is that it's always good to have the Prime Minister or ministers waving the flag. The trade delegations that we've pulled together have been outstanding, and actually it's often that there might be one or two representatives from education, but selling the value of it to other delegates on the trade mission has actually been invaluable. So everyone who goes offshore now, be it zesty to sell kiwi fruit or selling meat, just to remind people that the door is open offshore for young people to come to New Zealand and to get a great education.
Final question from Jenny Clode. Is it fair to say a major failing of our trade relationship is the failure to create strong consumer brands, meaning that we still rely primarily on commodities?
Look, I've just had a brief conversation this morning with Miles Harold from Fonterra. I know they come under a bit of criticism as our single biggest company. They have to ensure that their business strategy is a sustainable one, and I think they're doing a really good job of that. But we do have to continue to push up the value chain. And one of I guess the question is how far can we go with our pasture-fed meat? All the qualities of our production systems are valued by consumers, by high-end consumers around the world. I can't make a judgment on where you spend marketing dollars, where you spend your efforts offshore directly in market, other than to say that we're looking to all the sectors to assist to move the value up. And in tech, it's amazing what is happening. And I think, again, we have to support them. We quickly revert back to the primary sectors, and as Ag Minister, I'm enthusiastic about that. But we have to acknowledge those opportunities in the tech sector as well, where we get an amazing, they're invisible, they're weightless, but they deliver a huge amount of value back to us. So for the rest of it, I don't think it's a failure at all. I think if you look at the results, record export earnings from the primary sectors, and they have adjusted to meet the changing consumer demands in COVID. I think we've done an amazing job there as well. So thank you to all those who have got us to where we are now, but we will have to keep moving up the value chain because the cost of production, the cost of transport are not going to come down. And the only way to remain viable is to move up the value chain.
Minister, I think I acknowledged after your speech the enormity and the importance of this free trade agreement with China. I think I also acknowledge and want to acknowledge today the work that you've done on trade and trade agreements over the last 12 months on behalf of the business community. Thank you, and we look forward to working with you again. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking the Minister for his presentation.